COVID news, the COVID sports network here. The Titans, who were hoping to open back up their facility today, had 2 new players test positive for the coronavirus after having gone yesterday. I think they had none, right? Or was it 2 straight days they had none? I can't even remember. I think they had 2 straight days with no positives. And so the hope was that this morning they were going to be able to open back up their facility to get ready for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. Now that is unclear. 2 players testing positive. We don't know who those 2 players are. Stephon Gilmore for the Patriots has tested positive, and that is a big deal, obviously, in the NFL because that would expand the New England Patriots positive roster from just Cam Newton, and now the Patriots would have both their best offensive player, Cam Newton, and their best defensive player, Stephon Gilmore, testing positive. This would throw into the question whether the Patriots are going to be able to play going forward and whether they can return to their facility. They have canceled practice today. And also, in a bigger issue here for the Titans, we'll have to see what ends up happening with their game against the Bills. There also is a report that a member of the Raiders has tested positive. And so we will see exactly what is going on there, but there will be a lot of stories coming out, certainly in the world of the NFL surrounding all of this. We'll come back to that to close out the show, by the way. But on the flip side, we just had what I think is a really interesting interview with Carole Baskin. And, I mean, that was, for people who watched Joe Exotic, she was fantastic, wasn't she?
Yeah, they made her seem like a Looney Tunes on the documentary. And I told
you, but she just spent 25 minutes with us and seemed totally normal.
Yeah, and we pointed this out a couple of weeks ago when I first got in contact with her. She emailed right back and was very cool to deal with when I was dealing with a couple of professional sports teams that, you know, were being very difficult. So, yeah, it's cool. And now whenever you have a question about your Bengal cats, by the way, you should have took my advice months ago when I told you to go Russian blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was insightful. Like, I actually learned something about what was going on, not only with the case and the wildlife park she took over, but stuff behind the scenes with the media and how some of that was taken possibly out of context. And now that I think about it, it's funny how she said if you watch that Netflix documentary or quote unquote documentary, she was in that same outfit all the time. So
yeah.
They kind of just avalanched her with the whole thing about her husband. So really interesting interview there.
What did you think? Did you watch the Tiger King documentary, Dub?
Absolutely.
So what did you think? Like, what was your expectation of her from the documentary versus the 20-plus minutes she just spent with us?
Yeah, I was really unsure of how that interview was going to go, which directions it would take. But I thought it went really well. I thought it was a fascinating conversation. And also, I mean, you got to show your wife the audio of what she was telling you about your new
it's terrifying
cats.
about the Bengal cats. I mean, that is.
This is a whole new situation that you have on your hands
knew
now.
Getting these cats was going to be a disastrous move. I just knew it. Which is why I've been anti-cat. And then my wife and the kids all wanted cats, and like I'm allergic to cats, so we had to get some cats that would not make us. I'd be able to live in the house and not die because of allergies. And now we got cats that are going to be peeing everywhere. This is not ideal for me.
But you're rich. You could actually put a running stream inside your mansion, and the cats will just spray in there.
The running stream I don't think would help me. I might have to build a new house for the cats. I'm going to have to move to. I'm going to have to get my compound. That's my new goal. Is I want to have I like my house now. It's a good place to live. We've been here 5 or 6 years. But my new goal is to have a bunch of acreage, and I'm going to have a compound. And as a part of that compound, I think I'm just going to have to move the cats into their own house, like their own little doll house. I need to have a cat house. Not a cat house, unfortunately, that would be filled with a bunch of prostitutes. They're a harem for my fulfillment. But a literal cat house. I need one of those, kids' doll houses that we can just put the cats in that I never have to enter. Because they don't go outside, these cats. They stay inside all the time. Eddie, did you watch the Tiger King documentary?
I absolutely did, yes.
So what did you think? I mean, did you leave this conversation thinking hey, Carole Baskin like sounds totally normal, like a reasonable person.
Well, I think it's a reminder that, and we saw this with the Michael Jordan thing, right? That just because they slap documentary on it doesn't mean that there aren't biases and slants.
That's a great point.
And things like that involved in the filmmaking by the people who put it on. There's a lot of, you think documentary, well, they're just going to throw the facts out there and you decide for yourself. A lot of times that's not the case.
Well, it's interesting because I got asked, somebody's doing a documentary on Steve McNair. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, will you be interviewed for this documentary? And it's obviously not a documentary about me, but I also got asked by HBO Real Sports to be on their program. They're doing a story about football coming back. And they were like, hey, will you be interviewed? And I said, I don't know if I want to do it, either one, because I don't like, as someone who does live radio and as someone who does live television, you can have whatever opinion you want of me for purposes of live radio or live television. But I know that every word that I say gets to be heard. I don't like sitting for interviews that aren't live where they then can take my words and put them out of context, because then you're giving all the power to the documentarian and it may not be an accurate reflection of what I actually said. Does that make sense? So I don't even like to sit for these interviews because I'm like, I don't know what role I'm going to play in the documentary or in the interview. If I talk for 5 hours and they take 5 minutes of what I said, that's really not a very accurate reflection. And we've seen this already. I had to tape the entire interview that I did with the Washington Post. They wrote a 2,300 word piece on me, and I don't remember I think they used 100 words from me, and I posted the excerpt, and we had tens of thousands of words from me. So how can you argue that that's in any way an accurate reflection? What about you, Roberto? Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. The interesting thing was that she had no idea that that her documentary that she was being filmed for came out.
Yeah, by the time it actually came out, it was not in any way an accurate rejection.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, my wife is evidently listening, and she said, tell Danny G we tried to get Russian blues and we got catfish. That's true. We tried to buy some Russian blues, and there's all these places out there now online where they try to sell. You got to be careful if you're buying a dog or a cat.
You had mentioned this on the air, actually, that your assistant almost put a deposit down, right?
Yeah. We almost got catfish for the Russian blues. There have been so many people in the quarantine, a lot of moms, dads, kids, that they've said, okay, we're going to be around the house. Well, we'll get a kitten, we'll get a puppy, to kind of have as a family entertainment. And also we have the time to be able to raise one because we're spending so much time around the house. And as a result, there are huge catfishing scams because there's a shortage of puppies and cats, relatively speaking, compared to normal because so many people have wanted them. And so, we almost got catfished on going for the Russian blue. It's crazy. All right, when we come back, we'll put a bow on the show, try to make sense of these latest COVID positives in Tennessee and in New England, and potentially also now in Las Vegas. They are coming after the favorite teams of all of the people on the show. This is Outkick on Fox Sports Radio.